So the Autonomous Tenants Union Network is a group that we had our formal convention in October, and now there's about 25 tenant unions and eviction defense groups that are part of the network across North America. So we truly try to make these spaces so that people who are doing tenant organizing can work together and support each other and learn from each other. And part of what we mean by autonomous is that we're not connected to nonprofits or service providing groups or to the state. So we're trying to build political power outside of the sort of traditional realms where we're attached to what the rich donors want us to do.
So the name of this town hall is a movement of the evicted. So I wanted to start by a bit explaining why we choose this name. We chose it because eviction concern all of us as working class and indigenous tenants, either as a past event, an immediate attack on our housing, or future threats. That's something that landlords wage against us. And even though unhoused tenants don't have the same legal rights as housed tenants, we all have a relationship to eviction, whether we're housed, unhoused, or underhoused. And so at the beginning of the pandemic, we couldn't organize as we did before. We used to organize in a small neighborhood of Burnaby that's near Vancouver, and we organized against a specific type of eviction. And with the pandemic, we changed our outreach and we started organizing against all eviction. And through this work, we got in touch with lots of people that shared their experiences with us. And most of the tenants we spoke with had spent years on the streets before we met with them, either ended up sleeping in their cars after the eviction date. And one of the main, maybe common conception that we hope we can fight against at this town hall is the idea that tenants and people that live on the streets are different categories of people, which further criminalize and pathologize our houseless people, while we know that any of us could end up on the street and we need to fight the system which creates this houselessness in the beginning. So why we want to focus on it today is because the more landlords are able to trample on communities that are houseless, either poor, working class, indigenous people, the more it increases the power of landlords and city to then attack everybody else. And in the cities we organize, we're calling from Wally in Surrey today, that's near Vancouver as well. We see how the forces of displacement attack the street communities first before they turn to our low-income units. And so the displacement and erasure of unhoused and precariously housed people is the first step of the destruction of our neighborhoods. But I want to say that today is not about a story of only despair and violence. We know that it's a point of resistance. Evictions and being houseless and being on the streets in British Columbia and beyond, through what we're going to hear today, militant city movements, squats, and people organizing within the houseless community have been instrumental in creating and opening new housing in cities. But yet, still, this housing is highly precarious and criminalized, and so that's why we need to keep fighting past the eviction date to build a stronger movement and solidarity between housed and unhoused tenants. So I'm going to stop talking now, and then I pass the mic to Tana and Wanda, which have been
Wanda first.
Okay, Wanda and Tana, which have been leaders of 10 city struggles in our region.
Thank you. My voice is very cracky. I'm in a little area of Surrey called Wally, where my story, my struggles, and my fights have taken place. We fight against the bylaw officers and police officers every day. They would bully us. They would take our things, throw them in the garbage, because we didn't deserve to have any possessions. They feel that we should have nothing because we don't have homes. And even if you do have a home and you're out there, they still are mean to you and bully you because you're helping the homeless people, which is wrong. I was out there for 7 years, So I know how much of a struggle it was. And I managed to do 2 tent cities, well, 3 tent cities and some rallies and marches. And the longest tent city I had was on the Strip. It's an area in Wally called, yeah, and there it was very hard and difficult because the cops were just very nasty to everybody, and so were the bylaw. And the shelters there at first weren't allowing pets, which unfortunately I have pets. And so I managed to get them to finally change after, a couple months of fighting with them about their policy on having pets. I also managed to start gathering people from the Strip, the community of the homeless there, and having street meetings once a week. So that way we can all get together and talk about what issues are bothering us and, what are we going to do about it. And we wouldn't allow bylaw or the police to attend these meetings. If there was an issue that needed to be brought up to them, afterwards I would go and talk to them because I was the voice for everybody out there. I'm still the voice for everybody because I believe in fighting for our rights to be treated as humans.
If you hear anyone whining in the background, it's our two babies.
Yes, it's our dogs.
We're not paying enough attention to them.
I apologize about that. I also managed to, there was no public washrooms for us to use when we were on the Strip. There was one bathroom to serve, 200 people, and that was just impossible. So we did a little protest one weekend and proved to the city that, yes, we're responsible people, we're clean people, and we got porta potties. I also explained to them that we needed a safe injection site area for people who do drugs shoot up, and they finally got one going there too. So that successfully, it's still open. What else we did on the Strip? I think that was all.
The March Against Bylaw.
Yeah, we did a March Against Bylaw. That was the very first event that I was involved in. And we went from the Strip in Wally there to our city hall, which is, 4 or 5 long blocks away from where we were. And it was a good turnout for that too. The meetings were going very well until the bylaw and the police decided to really pick on me and remove me from the situation. And then there was nobody really to take over and fight for their rights. So I had to wait until I became available again to do so. And I'm doing it now, and I won't stop doing it now because it's very important to me and to Red Braid also to fight for everybody. Another tent city that I had was called Sanctuary Tent City, which was another successful tent city because not everybody got housed, but they did get put into a shelter. I got housed myself. I'm still in the same home, but I haven't stopped fighting for the rights and fighting for my family, as I call them. Here at Red Braid, we have an office space which was not being used very much. So I asked if I could open up a drop-in center for the people of the streets to come in and have somewhere to have a hot meal, hot coffee, friendly chat, and clothing if they need it, if we have it. And so far, everything is going awesome with the center. I'm really happy to be involved with it. And I'm very happy that Red Braid has been there for me because they've been a big help through the years for myself and making me feel better about myself. I don't know what else to say.
Can you say how the Wally Center is different from like a nonprofit run office?
The Wally Center is done all by volunteers. We're also take donations, obviously, but we're not in a place that's gonna get in your face about issues like getting you to how to do information on housing, and we're a friendly place. We're an organized people that want to help other people. It's run by the people for the people. So I mean, it's a good place. It's not like government funded nothing. No, that's one thing we will not take is funding from them because it won't be the same. There'll be too many rules, and I don't want to live like that. And nobody that comes in here wants to have all these rules you have to follow and guidelines.
Mm-hmm. And that is run by the street kin community.
Yeah, it's run by our street community, that council that I'm still involved in, and it's slowly getting bigger and more people are turning out for it, which is awesome. So I'm glad. happy. I'm tired. I did work until 7 a.m. this morning, so don't mind me.
Okay, here's your presentation.
Okay, hi, my name's Tana. I'm come with Wanda and Red Braid to, I'm from Maple Ridge, another suburb of Vancouver. In 2015, a small group of people set up tents on a small stretch of land along a street called Cliff Avenue in Maple Ridge. The other side of Cliff Avenue was a spa shop and 3 or 4 residential homes. But on the side where the tents were was just a ravine and just enough room to put up a few tents, and then there was a drop off, so there wasn't a lot of people there. The tenants didn't like it at all, the people that lived across the road. Tents were immediately added to by others looking for safe sites in town instead of bushy areas on the edge or the outside of town. And a small tent city sprung up on Cliff Ave sort of involuntarily in no time. And news crews began to show up to inform the public, and even the mayor of Maple Ridge showed up, news cameras in tow. How do I scroll here?
Use 2 fingers, or I can do it for you.
Okay. Yeah, and we began to be hopeful of a good outcome with the mayor, but it was agreed to disband the tent city and a shelter would be opened a block away. And shortly after, place called Rain City Housing, who believe in housing first, they're a nonprofit housing society agency, set up a shelter in an old mattress shop in Maple Ridge in the core of downtown. It's the old shelter with Salvation Army, but they had a tendency to call police on someone if they had a warrant, or they didn't really seem to be working for the people that they were taking care of, and more like the coffers of the Salvation Army was what their main priority was. So they cooperated with the police and stuff like that, and not trying to help us so much. Maple Ridge is like a small suburb of Vancouver, about 25 miles outside of Vancouver. Vancouver is one of the top 10 rated cities to live in the world. And in the late 1980s, the rents began to rise unchecked right around Expo. And the rents just became outrageous, and they're totally unaffordable to lower income people. And it's common to have 2, 4, 6 people sharing 1-bedroom apartments just to have somewhere to live. At Cliff Avenue, no one wanted to back us up or give us a hand with anything, or rally with us. And Alliance Against Displacement, which is now called Red Braid Alliance for Decolonial Socialism, visited during the Cliff Avenue tent city to help us organize against our opposition, which was mainly everyone in Maple Ridge. We call them Ridgelantes. Cliff Avenue tent city residents moved into Rain City shelter with a few exceptions. Out of 41 beds, only a few became available to other people than the shelter people, than the Cliff Avenue people. Afterwards, there were no really constructive meetings with the city of Maple Ridge geared towards finding us some type of housing. Rain City drove people to see housing upon occasion, but other than that, the Cliff Avenue residents just basically filled up the beds and not much was done for them. Rain City remained open for, I think, just over 2 years. And then the new elected mayor announced that it would be closing on May 3rd, 2016. And there was no backup shelter for the people that were living there. Nothing would be set up to replace it. No plans were in place to help anyone there find any housing. So this time, Red Braid came again to offer some help with organizing and figuring out what our plan would be. All the Cliff Avenue tent city people knew who they were. Maple Ridge authorities had taught us to be cautious, and Red Braid had to convince us that they were on the same agenda because of the Cliff Avenue fiasco didn't really work out too well. All throughout the street knowledgeable, all street knowledgeable information was given by word of mouth. The local neighborhood papers, the magic of cellular technology, and Red Braid driving thousands and thousands of miles from their various suburbs to come to us and find our street people, which are scattered all over the place. And on May 3rd, 2016, sorry, Rain City Shelter closed down for good. We'd formed two plans. One was to refuse to leave the shelter until alternative accommodation could be found for the residents. And the other was to immediately take on a site for the new tent city. 2 days before I chose the site for the tent city and had two others check my choice, it met with approval. And on May 3rd, the front of Rain City Housing, formerly the mattress shop, closed down, and the front of the shelter was heavily laden with police cars, news crews, everybody watching everyone coming out of the shelter, and you know, pointing cameras at us, moving our possessions down the road in shopping carts and stuff. The rule given to us from on high was from BC Housing, the government housing authority here. Once you stepped outside the building, your occupancy came to a close and you were denied re-entry. If you had to come in and get another load of stuff that belonged to you, someone had to hold the door open and wait for you to come back. Otherwise, you would not make it back in the building. Some of us decided that the second plan was that we were not going to leave the shelter until something satisfactory had been agreed upon with BC Housing and ourselves. And that turned out to be the BC Housing boss. And the person that we chose to negotiate for us did think that he was pretty good at negotiating, but it turned out that he was not as devious as they were, and so he missed the tricks that they were so happily laying out for him to trip on. And they promised to bring him written copies of the agreements that that they'd come to that night. And the next day they received no written contracts or agreements, and the people that were there were put up in hotels for about a week and then let go for one reason or another, back out onto the streets again. And no agreement was actually come to, according to BC Housing. The written agreements never came, so BC Housing put the people, you know, anyone in Tent City or who had left the shelter was excluded. Although the person left to negotiate was supposed to be able to speak for all the people in the shelter, but we had to do something with the people that were left over. So we went down and founded Anita Place Tent City. So yeah, once the people that were kicked out of the hotel, they came down to Tent City one by one, plan one up in flames. So the homeless people here are treated like a subclass of human beings, not to be trusted, not to be believed, because we're all liars, thieves, drug addicts. We're all out to scam somebody or rip off your lawn ornaments so we can sell them for drugs. Just ridiculous ideas going on. There's a couple of groups in town that are hate groups that get together and take pictures of us, put us on Facebook, and make assumptions of us, what we're doing. You know, two people standing on the street means that we're teasing out cars to rob later on. You know, they just write whatever they want, and we're helpless to do much about it. So Red Braid and many other people, these tent cities are too easily gotten rid of. When they decided they're going to get rid of them, in one particular case, they came and plowed everything under into the ground. They didn't even bother taking anything away. They just buried it. And from my understanding, a couple of people died trying to recover their items by digging them up again. Red Braid and many other people believe the next step is to try and take over buildings that are empty and houses not being occupied, to make the government understand that we're not going to go away. We did take over 2 buildings, and we did get a lot of attention. And yeah, a lot, yeah. And I believe myself that that's a good start for a different type of thing, rather than just say, here we are and we need some help, is to, you know, take over these empty buildings or something that that's not being used. If it's not being used, why shouldn't people be able to use it? I understand private property is private property, but a lot of times people from out of country buy houses and just leave them empty as a future investment to make more money, then sell them later on down the road. So they'll sit there empty for years. And I just don't see the point in, if we have sick people and COVID going on right now, why can't they isolate in those homes or in empty school buildings? So we need permanent solutions geared to the people, not the banks and the landlords. The Lower Mainland is spattered with huge empty houses bought by, well, like I just said, by foreigners as an investment, and they're not occupied. Our theory is that if we moved in there, kept the grounds up, keep it all clean, we might have a chance to be able to live somewhere for a while before anybody catches on. And squatters have a little bit more rights than just campers, I believe. Not many more.
Not in BC.
Yeah, but
it's not about rights, it's about power.
Yeah, so our plans for the future are to be squatting in private homes or empty buildings in order to keep people safe. A lot of times we're burnt out of our campsites by vigilantes, or our stuff is all damaged, stolen, taken by bylaw and thrown in the dumpster. We never see it again. And in a lot of cases, that's family photos, identification, things that you need to get by, you and I both. And they casually disregard what we need it for and just toss it all like it's trash. The Volcano newspaper, we want to stay in touch with people and keep them informed by writing articles in the Volcano and telling everyone what's happening. Planning for more noticeable activities such as blockading the roads to the RCMP station, which we did last year, and that turned out pretty good for an attention getter. Rallying in public places for cheaper and better housing for the poor, petition for rent freezes and eviction moratoriums.
I think we're at time now.
Okay. Okay. I need a place in Tent City in the housing crisis for all its residents went over the country via the news. Red Braid and their affiliates and the Need a Place people were relentless in keeping us in the public eye. Television, newspapers, our Volcano newspaper, all kept up to what was happening. And the local hate groups had us under drone observation, putting film on the web to push us in the worst possible light. But we will persevere as long as it takes to provide people with decent, affordable housing. And everybody think up some good plans and come up with some great ideas for us. We would love to try them out. Houses for all.
Yeah, quick disclaimer. The tenant unions that I'm in are aware of my knowledge shared today, but they haven't had an opportunity to review what I'm presenting, so I don't want to implicate them in anything if I misrepresent them wrongly. So I'm gonna go over just a few topics. One is who, why, the who, why, when, how, prospects and some challenges. So who's been involved in solidarity to the houseless community in Chicagoland? It hasn't just been tenants unions. It's a constellation of houseless folks, residents, tenants, squatters, people who participate as individuals or part of collectives and organizations such as solidarity networks, mutual aid groups, and that includes the fledgling Chicago Union of the Homeless and tenants unions such as Tenant Solidarity and Tenants United. And the relationship of the above mentioned folks, they vary in density and familiarity. So a lot of times we're not in the same room together throughout the year, trying to coordinate things. We sometimes like emergency after emergency, people coming together. People have different motives for helping out helping out houseless folks. It's hard to know everyone's motives because a lot of times we're just getting together to help out folks, and so we don't get to have those conversations. But my impression is that with a lot of people outside of the unions, it's just because solidarity is unquestionable. Just this knee-jerk reaction to help folks out. But there are a lot of participants who are formerly houseless or currently houseless who are engaging and catalyzing this solidarity. In our tenants unions, we consider the houses to be tenants. They're like our definition of who we cover, and they're part of our community building. And so the stuff that I'm going to talk about, I'm just really going to cover from like 2018 to the present. And this is stuff that goes on in varying intensities throughout the year, and also in extreme weather, including the 2019 and 2021 polar vortexes, where temperatures dropped to negative 23 degrees Fahrenheit, and negative 20 degree, I'm sorry, negative 23 degrees and negative 20 degrees, respectively, in those years. So what have we done? So as I said before, it's not just the tenant unions, it's this constellation of members in the community and tenant union members. We participate a lot of times informally, but we bring stuff back to the tenants unions, and we try to, use our networks and our resources to help each other out. So stuff that we've seen is attempts to push back evictions of the houses, the sweeps that folks talk about. It's, I don't know, yeah, some of the experiences that folks are talking about in the cities earlier seem to be similar to what we experience here in Chicago. There's a war on the houseless. Like, it's unrelenting, and it's really demoralizing. So a lot of times the most that people can do is to try to do these media campaigns, including phone zaps and social media shaming of government and other entities that are promoting and carrying out these sweeps. And sometimes that also involves just trying to get people on the ground to curb the excesses that, I mean, it's already excessive, but to curb further excesses from going on. What we've seen in the cases of the polar vortexes, and even as a result of COVID, there was lots of organizing to temporarily house folks into motels, autonomous shelters, opening up squats, and providing other necessities for shelter, such as tents, water, heaters. There have been people who give home cooked meals to the houseless through like various different networks. People just like spontaneously wanting to help out. Lots of fundraising, even people trying to coordinate getting, I remember this last year, people were trying to help get hand washing stations so that houseless folks could try to stop the spread of COVID when there was nobody else helping out. So those were some ways in which communities were helping out. Other things that we've seen is communicating housing opportunities to the houseless, and that was something that happened this year. Where there's a sort of bailout going on for landlords that allows expedited government subsidized housing to qualifying houseless folks. And that was something that we try to get the word out to house houseless folks. And I haven't had a check-in to see the full results of that. Other things that we've seen is helping houseless folks to relocate to encampments, because it's hard living by yourself. And I think there are some folks who realize that yeah, it's better when you squat up with other folks and other encampments to try to look out for each other. And yeah, just providing sun-dry necessities any chance that we get. And yeah, the needs are vary, and there's so many, so it's kind of hard to list everything. So this is stuff that's happened in the past, and we're gonna keep doing this type of stuff, the different communities that are involved. But I think some newer things that are in the works is we've been, at least my local neighborhood tenant union has been building community with some, you can call them like rogue medical workers, who they just really want to plunge into like medical voluntary communism and give healthcare to whoever needs it at their clinic, and trying to mobilize the community to help them out, to help others. And so they're totally on board with us building community with houseless folks in ways that they cannot, and connecting them to healthcare. And they'll definitely treat them for free, and avoid a lot of the discrimination and trauma that a lot of clinics and hospitals uh, partake in to our neighbors. Um, and but we're going to be developing a medical fund to also help subsidize the clinic, to help them, because they do got bills to pay as well. And yeah, and hopefully this year, as people get vaccinated, we're going to be able to invite more of our neighbors to public meetings again. A lot of this stuff has been through Zoom, and that's just no way to build community with a lot of houseless folks who, yeah, like people mentioned earlier, they get their stuff stolen all the time. It's really hard to build community with folks who don't have the same possessions that we have, and access to digital technology like we have. I would say that they're different. Through the above mentioned ways of engaging in solidarity with houseless folks, I think there are really prospects for movement building. One of ATUN's purpose is to build leadership from the most marginalized and the most oppressed, and houseless folks are definitely in this category. And there are a lot of houseless folks and formerly houseless folks who do want to fight back, who do want to build community, who in the process of being helped, help others. And through the above ways, I think that it is possible for us to carry forth these objectives. And so the last thing I'll talk about is some of the challenges that we've seen. I like the whole rose and thorn thing. It's good to talk about the good things, but let's talk about the challenges. Aside from the obvious and usual, yeah, it has been a real big challenge under the pandemic to develop and maintain relationships with the houseless without meeting in person. And like I said earlier, as we get vaccines, and folks should even be checking in with houseless folks to see if they need help accessing vaccines. It's going to be really important to invite houseless folks to in-person meetings that people start to have. So yeah, I mean, we haven't been able to connect because of those barriers, but as we get back, as well, and I'm also sensitive that some people do not want to get vaccinated. So, but as people get more comfortable with coming out, we definitely have to step up our game to have our meetings outdoors and invite our neighbors in to solve that problem that we've experienced during the pandemic. Another issue that we've seen is that a lot of times when we're helping out the houseless folks, we're the needs are so many, and there are a lot of challenges, and a lot of times we're leaning on a broad network of people who a lot of times are not familiar with each other, and we come together in emergencies. And so there is conflict that happens, and it's even worse because, and this stuff happens because harm prevention and conflict resolution, in my opinion, I don't believe that that's something that's like a popular sentiment among radicals and like meaningfully taking time out to do. It's not seen as like a responsibility that we need to take up as part of our social transformation. And so problems that we do see is that there is sexism and racism that causes problems when we're trying to get together to help others. And all this stuff, it's worse when you're trying to do a lot within a short time frame. And so effects of this is I've seen diminished turnout among like folks of color to such mobilizations, because a lot of folks are tired of these conflicts. And then there's also lack of continuity. A lot of times it kind of feels like efforts that should be sort of like being built on are constantly restarting with like new resource, like new needs to look for new resources and stuff, because there's just that lack of continuity, and so it's hard to like really build. And a solution for that I propose is having in our movements anti-oppression training. Set up your own local aorta. Aorta is the Anti-Oppression Resource and Training Alliance, their worker cooperative. And I've been thinking about like, it would be cool if A2 were able to like partner up with aorta, because it costs money. They're a worker co-op, and make something accessible and have it as like a benefit of joining A2. Another problem, another challenge is, we've done a lot of fundraising. I think we probably raised like this year, we probably raised over 20,000, maybe more than 30,000 to help out houseless folks. And yeah, that can cause a lot of problems and hesitance when there isn't a mechanism in place to place that money and to have it dispersed in ways that don't cause distrust. And fortunately, I don't know if folks here are familiar with Open Collective, but Open Collective is a new platform that makes this kind of stuff a lot easier and more transparent. So hopefully, as you know, we weren't quite ready for it this time. Open Collective is new, but hopefully in the future it'll be a lot easier, and other organizations and groups all throughout the country can use Open Collective and have it help them out. And I'm not looking at the message, so feel free to step on me if I need to wrap it up. So the last two challenges that I'll talk about is yeah, when I think that when we're dealing with House of Solidarity, it's good to try to combine it with prisoner support, because there's one, I'm involved in prisoner support a lot, and so that's always one angle in which I try to frame things. Yeah, houseless folks are in a very marginalized situation, and they're very vulnerable to the government, right? To the predatory cops, and they're very predatory here in Chicago. And so hopefully folks are bucking up with the system and getting involved in prisoner support, and doing House of Solidarity. But you can, when you're doing that, there are other risks that are involved with that. And that's like, for example, I helped put someone up in a hotel recently during the polar vortex, and then it turned out that they're part of an ongoing investigation with the Chicago Police Department. So I had a detective harassing me. And the problem isn't the solidarity to the houses. The problem is the government, right? The problem is the system. But it's for that reason that, when we're doing any of our movement work, that we do have reliable attorneys, and that we're, in my opinion, like developing those relationships as well, and maintaining them, and looking out for those who look out for us. Fortunately, like when that happened, we don't have that many attorneys, not even like for tenants. There's not that many attorneys who help out, and then for other things it's even less. And so it's important to really be on the lookout, as I see it, to cultivate those relationships of mutual support, and to keep our butts out of jail for doing honest, good work. The last thing is the last challenge we face is nonprofit territorialism. Yeah, nonprofits, they're like cops, they've threatened us when we've tried to help out houseless folks through different ways, right? They're just like, they want to be everywhere, they want to do everything, they don't want anybody else to interfere. And there's all sorts of unhealthy dynamics that play a role in that territorialism. And so I don't know quite what to do about the nonprofits. To me, they're like cops. Just don't talk to them. That's how I treat them. I just stay away from them. I don't want them to know my name, any identifying information. I don't want to give them anything to land me in the slammer. But yeah, that's all I got for today. I hope any of that was useful. And before I yield the floor, I just wanted to thank everybody else for sharing your experiences today so far. It's giving us it'll give us a lot to think about. Yeah.
So I'm and there's a co-organizer here, Cece. We're from Don't Evict PDX, or Don't Evict Portland, and we work on preventing, delaying, and reducing the harm of evictions and building tenant power. And as a part of that definition, they definitely include houseless folks and what is referred to as sweeps as a form of eviction. And so it's definitely within our scope of work, but we also recognize that it's not our, we're not the best position to do that work. And so we came from a model of building solidarity with the groups on the ground that were already working in that sphere. And so that's a little bit about how we came to build a relationship with Stop the Sweeps and the PDX Radical Houseless Collective. And so we're gonna cede most of our time to those groups to talk about what's happening in Portland. But one of the things that I just wanted to spend a teeny bit of time on at the top is talking about what we mean when we say solidarity. And I think that there's something, at least I'm thinking a lot about as somebody who is a tenant and talking and asking the questions about what it means to build a relationship of solidarity. And I think I've been starting to think of everything on a spectrum, right? As opposed to trying to think of things in binaries or 2 to 3 options, like distinct options. I'm thinking about everything as a spectrum. And when we talk about these relationships, if the relationship really only goes one way, is that mutual aid? Is that solidarity? We have to be cognizant of the power dynamics that exist with how tenants who are housed are seen probably more favorably, like despite the fact that we have a struggle against landlords and property owners, overall we may be seen more favorably. And so there is a power dynamic. I'm not saying that there's a way in which we are like, to shrink the real differences in lived experiences. But at the same time, if we are talking about solidarity that only ever goes one way, I think we're really at risk of replicating some of the dynamics that lots of people have been talking about kind of recreating nonprofit dynamics by another name. And so I'm thinking about how the relationships that we're building as in our group we're creating openings and on-ramps for skill sharing and resource sharing and power building that is always going both ways. And the little spectrum that I think about is on like the very farthest end, it can look pretty transactional, right? It's like you show up to my thing and then I'll show up to your thing and we'll keep a little tally score, right? Like that's one way to do that. And like, it's probably not the one that I'm hoping that, we are working at. And then on the other side of the spectrum is like, there's always tenants, providing resources, help and support and inviting houseless collectives into our thing, right? Like we're making our thing bigger and always it's about how we are providing and giving and making space for. And then there's everything in between, right? And all of those ways in which there can be multiple ways that we are in relationship with each other. And I don't think it's going to look the same for any 2 collectives or relationships, but we have so many options about being in right relationship with each other and about being honest about how we are showing up for each other. And one of the ways that I think about this in Portland is, I don't know if people heard about the Red House on Mississippi that happened back at the end of last year. It was a pretty large eviction defense. And that like popped off in the news nationally in November. But the part of the story that wasn't, I don't think, picked up by the national news stories is that struggle had been going on since September. And for 2 months ahead of that time, there had been a on-the-ground encampment that had been holding the ground and holding the space to protect that family's house from being foreclosed and repossessed. And those people were primarily houseless and not entirely. There were also, so one of the founding members of Don't Evict was down there camping full time, but really it was houseless people who were putting their bodies like on the line for this housed family to not get foreclosed on by the bank, right? Like that is solidarity to me, right? That it's we're not creating a dynamic in which we are not asking for support and help and solidarity going both ways. So that's something that I just wanted to bring to the conversation. And in that, I'm going to turn it over to let the PDX Houseless Radical Collective and Stop the Sweeps talk about the situation here in Portland. Thanks, y'all.
You want to go ahead of me, Radical Collective?
You guys go ahead and go first. Can you hear me?
All right. Yeah, we can hear you. Cool. So my name is Benjamin. I use he, they pronouns. I'm with Stop the Sweeps PDX. We are a group that was formed about 1.5 years ago in conjunction with Right to Survive and Sisters of the Road and with the Western Regional Advocacy Project. Most of the organizers within the group have been formerly Unhoused, but also we kind of came out of organizing from a lot of other houseless advocacy spaces. So there's a lot of history within our group, even though the group is relatively new. Yeah, so we focus on a lot of different things for better or worse. Most recently, we've been helping do a eviction defense in Laurelhurst, sweeps defense. It's been going on and off since November, but we just successfully managed to keep the cops away for 2 weeks, which they didn't. So here, because of an Anderson agreement due to a prior lawsuit, they post an area, and then within that area, they have up to 10 days, working days, to sweep that area. The cops did not want to sweep the area, and the private contractors who were going to sweep did not want to sweep the area. So we managed to win some time for the residents in the area who asked us to help to defend the space. That being said, we also engage along things around state legislation. So we've been helping run the Right to Rest Act for a multitude of years, since pretty much 2015. This is a bill that would decriminalize homelessness throughout the state. So it's also been run in Colorado and California. Decriminalizes the ability to stand, sleep, and lie in an area, to sleep in cars, to share and receive food and parts, and things of that nature. It is a very radical bill, and because of that, the landowners and property owners, they hate this bill. Business alliances hate this bill, so we kind of lose every time. But it will be coming to a hearing on April 13th, where we were given 15 minutes to discuss why they need to take their boot off the neck of the unhoused. But yeah, so we also do a lot of work around researching systemic issues on homelessness. So for us, we've been focusing a lot on business improvement districts and how they coordinate nationally and internationally to create anti-homeless ordinances around the country. Things like sit-lie laws, camping bans, and things of that nature, and how they spend millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars in order to make it happen. And a lot of that money comes from property owners and the cities and counties who pool that money together through either fees or taxes. And actually, Caitlin will talk more about that, so maybe I'll skip that for now. And we also help run a sweeps hotline for people to be able to call in when they're being swept, so we can get people down to it and to observe. And then if they ask for help for like resistance, then we build a rapport and a relationship, and then we start building towards a resistance movement in that area. And we also are helping run a hygiene center for 4 days out of the week in a part of town. Yeah. And we also research nonprofit industrial complex stuff and why they are so down to exploit homeless people and make money off of it, but not talk about criminalization. That's a whole nother topic. But I feel like the thing we're most passionate about, or at least I am, and Caitlin is around business improvement districts and how much power they have in this country and how much they affect homelessness, right? And create sort of this intentional poverty. So Caitlin, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so I'll give like the quick and dirty definition of what a business improvement district is, especially because it's a very nuanced topic that can take a long time to speak about. But basically, a business improvement district is a geographically bounded district where all of the property owners within that district is required to pay often what's considered a property assessment fee. But basically, these fees are then pooled together by the city, and the city distributes it to a business alliance, typically, usually a business nonprofit. And that group is basically allowed to use the money for whatever they want. At least in Oregon, there's like no regulations around it. And I know that's the case in a lot of other states and cities, but some may have different regulations. Anyways, though, typically it goes into things like marketing, and hiring private security, as well as sometimes contracting with local police departments or with the district attorney's office, which the bids in Portland do all of those things. So yeah, we just wanted to share a little bit more about them. In Portland, they're called enhanced services districts. They take on a lot of different names, mainly because business improvement districts doesn't always sound like a great thing. So I know, like, for instance, in San Francisco, they're often called community benefit districts. Some other areas, they call them business improvement areas, or you'll hear downtown improvement districts. Anything like that is probably a bid. They exist in almost every major city, at least in the United States, but also in the UK and Canada. And they also pop up in other countries all around the world. But they're definitely very concentrated in these like westernized countries like the US and UK. So yeah, so I could get into like more about what bids are, but I want to talk more about the organizing we're doing here specifically in Portland. So in Portland, we've actually been fighting against our largest ESD or bid, which is called Downtown Clean and Safe, which encompasses downtown and Old Town in Portland.
How many blocks? 215, something like that?
213, I'm pretty sure. So bids can range from being like 15 blocks to being like hundreds of blocks. In Portland, they're typically a lot larger. But with that, we also have a lot less. I know, like, there's a bunch of people from LA here. I'm pretty sure in LA there's like maybe like 40, 50 of them. But we only have 3, but they also take up a lot of our geography, especially in like around like the river. I don't know how familiar people are with the geography of Portland.
What's significant about that is that their security teams harass only one class of people, which is the unhoused. That's all they target. And they don't target drunk patrons. They don't help with, general crime. They just look for unhoused people in front of business properties and they tell them to move along, or they cite them for arrest, or they detain them for the police to show up.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, we're fighting against our largest bid. So our bid in downtown Clean and Safe is managed by Portland Business Alliance. And Portland Business Alliance, not only do they control this bid, they also are our regional chamber of commerce. And just a little like Portland politics thing, they are probably one of the largest lobbying bodies in all of Portland. Ask any organizer in Portland, they probably hate Portland Business Alliance for so many reasons. So we're trying to fight against Portland Business Alliance by trying to stop this contract renewal of their ESD, or at the very least get rid of their security contracts and their contracts with the police, because currently they contract with the Portland Police Bureau and have 6 officers who patrol solely in that district and report to the ESD specifically.
And just a final few words before we pass it on. What's significant about Clean and Safe is that they were just recently audited, which won a national award for that audit. Because for some reason cities don't audit their bids, right? Even though they've been around for quite a while. And they found that nearly $100 million had gone through them with no accountability, no oversight, no reports about how the security interacted with the unhoused, no reporting at all for 20 years. So I highly encourage y'all to look into your own local bids, right? Because they wield a lot of power in almost every major city. And to suggest to the auditor's office to fucking audit them, because it never happens. And they can look to Portland's audit as a model. But also, if you're interested in organizing around this, contact the Western Regional Advocacy Project, because it's a growing issue. People in DC, New York, LA, and San Fran, and here in Portland are just really starting to dig into them in a heavy way. And if you want to approach alleviating issues around homelessness, then we have to go after the people who created these fucking policies, right? And who control the properties and who unify behind anti-homeless ordinances and practices and creating security specifically against them. That being said, I think we might be a little over time. Apologies for that.
And then this isn't to add things, just saying that in the chat, I'll put links to some of the stuff we've written about it. We also do have like a research toolkit for cities who are interested in looking into this that we can share as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. So Bernard, I'll leave it to you.
Can you hear me? All right. I've never used Zoom before, so bear with me. There's also like a generator running outside my tent. I'm in the camp at Laurelhurst, so if there's background noise, I apologize. Yeah, we're the Portland Houseless Radicals Collective. I personally have experience in Houseless Collectives going back over 20 years, coming out of collectives of folks riding freight trains and traveling. We tend to form collectives and support each other. And recently we started thinking about the benefits that could have for all houseless people in Portland. So we reformed this collective and started becoming more vocal. We're invited by Stop the Sweeps down here to Laurelhurst to help with this defense down here. And yeah, I mean, we're not interested really in the idea of working with like city council or government or anything. We feel that they've repeatedly failed. Nonprofits repeatedly fail, largely due to restrictions that are put on them by governments and the funders that they rely on. We think there's a better, more radical way to do things. And like one big part of that is encouraging other groups of houseless people to form their own collectives. We went down a few days ago and spoke to some folks at another camp about collectivizing, and they seemed really interested, and we actually have another houseless collective now in Portland because of that. Our hopes that we can get more and more groups of people to do the same, and we can all come together to form a larger union and have an actual voice for houseless people that people will hear, whether they want to hear it or not. We have a campsite that we have scoped out to try and build some infrastructure in to take care of things that like whenever there is an established camp that has some public support, the city government always comes in and says, "Oh, it's dangerous because of sanitation and waste and things like that." So our plan is to take care of that stuff with composting toilets or latrines. Try and coordinate with some of the mutual aid networks here in Portland for garbage collection. I mean, possibly build tiny homes. I'm not sure, but like the place we have in mind, I'm fairly confident a lot can be done there without city finding out. And then it's also a place that could be defended, and it'd be a place to make a stand. So that's kind of the things we're trying to do the most right now. Another thing is that, like, as houseless people ourselves, we feel like we have the ability to show up at someone else's camp that may need help from other activists in the city. And there's a lot of mistrust with houseless people, for obvious reasons, with government coming in and trying to displace us and take our possessions away, as well as with social workers from nonprofits coming and maybe they're good intentions, maybe they're not, but their help always comes with strings attached, and it always seems to to end after a certain period of time. I don't know, when maybe they need people to cycle back through funding. But like, we hope that we can have more of a rapport with houseless communities around that could, like, open a door for other activists to come in. Yeah, so like here at Laurelhurst, we've been camped here in a tent for 2 weeks now. and we're trying our best to do some mutual aid stuff out here. We have a fund for the collective that we can use to help people with emergency needs, which we've been doing some of. Like we have a generator that we're custodians of to provide power. Things like that. Yeah, I don't have a lot else to say. We're pretty new to organizing. This is always, it's always been something we did to take care of ourselves and not really anyone else. So, opening that up and trying to do something for the community is a new path for us. And we're trying to learn. I appreciate Stop the Sweeps for inviting us down here and helping us get some experience.
So yeah, I'm using a laptop and my phone at the same time, which is why there's probably two of me. Yes, my name is Jessica Mendez, but they call me Queen. And I've been a member of Echo Park for 30 years. I'm originally born in Mexico, the capital of Mexico. I'm 32. I have 6 beautiful children, 6 daughters. And so I am in LA Echo Park, and we are part of, it's me, it's me and Wall Street. We're both members of the Echo Park community and the homeless community as well that was residing in the park. Well, basically, I could tell you that what happened to us was, I lived it. I lived it. I was one of 6 to be the last ones that left the park that night. It was very scary, never to say the least. At any point, even from prior days to that day, we had been hearing the intimidation, that the LAPD was putting on us, the choppers, because it's a park. We reside in a park. I've resided in Echo Park for 30 years, but in the tents, I've been there for it would be 3 to 4 months due to an accident I had, a car accident. There is where basically I besides living there, because I only lived like half a block away originally, when I lost everything. This was a very serious accident. I was in the hospital for 2 months. I've had 3 surgeries, 2 skin grafts, 1 spine tab. There's nothing I've been picked at, prodded at, whatever. And, nothing hurts more than what we lived that night. I raised my 6 daughters there. I'm a single mother. When I became homeless, basically I lost my home. And I'm trying to kind of think back to all the conversations the great conversations I was hearing. It sucks. And before I forget, I want to know, it sucks being Mexican. And I probably say it, I'm Mexican. And I don't have papers. I didn't do a doc. I'm trying to see if I can do it through a U visa. But, it's hard. It's hard for me that when I got to Echo Park, that same lake in 1990, and I grew up there in that same building. First was the gentrification that happened. Well, first was everything back, in East LA. It was worse in East LA that connected Echo Park to LA, Echo Park to East LA. And then as the years went on, it got a little bit better, but we got gentrified. Once the gentrification happened, they pushed out all those stores that I grew up with in that, within those 2 blocks, because my mother was a vendor. She sold corn on the corner of Sunset and Logan for 16 years. And that's a building we lived in, the Genesis building. It's a historical building. And then I moved down to like a block down there where it was a park. I found a community there. Sadly to say that with this accident that happened, the city wasn't with me. The city didn't do anything but send me bills that were outrageously insane. I can't pay $65,000 for one of the visits, and that's just one. Not even counting the time I stayed there. I was able to get medical help, but no, I had no physical therapy after that. I had no psychological help after that. I had no mental anything after that. And I'm talking about being released from the hospital with oxycodone, morphine, anything that could, ease the pain because of the accident. I refused to take those after I left from the hospital. The only therapy I had was that park. When they told me you can walk, that's the first place I where I found community and a group of people that were around me that basically they also gave me the name. I got the name originally in San Jose, California, but through a friend. But they started calling me the Queen of Echo Park there. At one point had the privilege of owning 8 tents. And as people were coming in and that actually needed it, and I'm talking about needed it, I would give them out to them. There's where I met, Eamon, who's Echo Park Rise Up, excellent leader. I met Wall Street as well. He's one of the smartest people I know. I met Ashley. Keeping in mind, we're underneath the office of Mitchell Farrell. Like where my mother lives, it's underneath the office of Mitchell Farrell. We've done several things to get this man's attention. Throughout the years, even the years I was there and not involved in something like this, he never dignified to show his face. This man is someone that is not see-through. Is not smart about being a political standpoint of view. Another thing I have to ask, there's a lot of Hispanic Mexicans, that have a voice and that either are afraid to use it because intimidation by the system has caused them to be, seen, not heard, or work and don't bug us. But there's a lot of Hispanic community in Echo Park. What they basically did, and please, if anybody, if I get too sidetracked off, okay, so I started living there. We hadn't heard anything really, at my point of view. Keep in mind the park is very big. At one point there was about 200 people living in Echo Park, but keeping in mind that Echo Park was one of the cleanest parks that there ever was. We try to keep an orderly control, no violence, no drugs. Of course, for whatever reason, the system might be perfect, the people are not, and we cannot control everybody's life. But 1/4 of one encampment does not justify or generalize all of us. There were working people that like me was your neighbor, and then I ended down there. So we formed a community basically through Echo Park Rise Up and Echo Park Street Watch. It was, and several of the little groups that joined in. We asked the city at one point for showers. We didn't get provided showers. We built them. We had a community garden. We had a community kitchen. We had a church service that would come every Monday, Wednesday. We had a system set up. As bad as the news wants to portray Echo Park, yes, I mean, there are bad things that have happened, but half of those have been coincidental, if not things that were out of anyone's control. But even then, it wasn't even an issue when any of that was going on, because, for example, Mitch's office never dignified to go take a walk down there, never dignified to go see what the people needed. We would always say Echo Park is a safe haven for unsheltered people. And I actually have been struggling myself with that term of, am I homeless? But how can I be homeless if this is my home? Echo Park is my home. How can I be homeless if, this is my state? This is where I come from, if I want to go geographically wise, Mexico was one part of this, so how can I be homeless when, this is my home in all senses of the word? And, like I said, it's just, I hate saying that, but unsheltered, I want to say, because when you're right. And, one of the conversations for the system, or like me that, I have 6 daughters, me having to go through this, God, forbid me going through this accident and losing my home like any other human can. I'm unfit to be a mother because I don't have a home due to the fact that I lost it. I am an electrician and I do raft and trim. I worked in that in San Jose in the Union 332. But coming down here to visit my family, I get into this accident. So I end up losing my home up there and my home down here. And I'm an unfit mother, even though I've raised my kids, and my older one's going to be 17 practically in a year. So, these are areas where the system sets you up to fail. Not everything's black and white. Even yet then, in the moment, I didn't ask anything from them. I'm a single mother. They don't have any of their fathers. And I've been a single mother for 5 years, 5, 6 years about. I don't get EBT. and I don't count down on anyone, please. I'm not talking about anyone that does, but I don't have the possibility of getting that aid if I needed it. I don't get pandemic relief. I don't get stimulus checks. I don't get EBT. I don't get welfare. I don't get WIC. I don't get anything, and I'll never have, so me and my family have found a way to survive. We're, 11 women and 2 boys. My mother's from Sonora. She's Native American. She's una India Yaqui from Sonora. My dad's from Oaxaca. I'm, from the capital. And it's hard because when I would go to the park and be there, and I would actually come out at different times because of things I had to do with my kids or whatever. What got me to be in, one day just stand up and talk, and even though risking anything I can risk, being like too many injustices ever since I was a child, ever since I grew up, ever since my mother sold corn there. I've seen the injustices that have happened. I've seen the people I love been hurt. I saw people being harassed. I saw people being intimidated. I saw police officers go in the dead of night without a uniform, without a badge, without any notification. Literally, I want surrounding 5 people surrounding one older man. He was like, he's 74, is encampment and saying and threatening him. Now they did this periodically throughout the week of the eviction to get us tired, to get us separated. They also had groups in their, LASA that went and offered rooms, basically, which, for me is a bullcrap, because if Mitch got amount of keys, what is the name of that? Project Room Key. He got certain amount of Project Room keys. He could have dispersed them in all his area, District 13. He didn't. He focused on Echo Park. Why? Because he wanted to use it as a target and try to exercise his power. Yet when we are the people, he is in a position of employment by the people, for the people. Guess what? We are the people, and we're talking about his office is here within one corner and the park is there. And I'm in both ways. And it just one day seeing that much injustice, my moral compass couldn't take it. How could I go back to my kids telling them that I witnessed something that was inhumane and ask them to be human? So from that week on, we started seeing intimidation. The people from LASA would come in, offer what they didn't keep, actually offer, pitch it to us in a way that, oh, come and take this key. Yeah, you'll have some restrictions, but nothing too bad. Come to find out, some of these Project Room keys, you're only allowed to leave from 12 to 4 in the afternoon. You only have 4 hours to do what you need to do. Upon going into the hotel, wherever they're going to put you, that's if you get a hotel room, or that's if they tell you they're going to put you in one place and you end up getting 2 cities away. And if you're not jammed in with 10 people at the same time, man and female. The lies that they did and to get everybody out, because within literally actually before the 2 days of eviction, only maybe 20 to 15 people have gotten rooms out of the 200. Within those 2 days of eviction, literally everybody was gone. Everybody in the dead of night was gone, or they basically got scared, got intimidated. They didn't want to get arrested. We're in a position like myself. So they packed it up and moved somewhere else because they didn't want to face the police. Some of them, a lot of them ended up taking the Project Room Key, where, it worked for some of them, and I'm not going to, go bad on it, but it didn't work for the majority of them. And the people that it didn't work for right now, the consequences are fatally, I don't know how to even put the word, it's to a point where they just messed up a bunch of good people that had already gone through a trauma of losing everything and getting kicked out. Their properties were thrown, everything said that there was going to be cataloged and precise, documented, and where they were going to put the stuff. No, that is not true. They basically within 2 days emptied that whole park. There is no way in hell they cataloged everything. They threw a bunch of people's possessions. Their only paperwork that they had as an identification, and he found a picture to some of them was worth more than $1,000 or $1 million. It had no value. They did this in a wrong way. Not only that, but that night they mobilized, like I said, over 400 police in SWAT gear. And we had 5 choppers on us that morning of the eviction throughout the whole morning, periodically like making siren sounds, kind of, intimidating. Before that, we had a protest that was on Glendale. And basically I'm one of, like I said, a few leaders that are leading up like the front lines with 20 officers on either side of a street, in full SWAT gear with pepper sprays and with bullets. At one point, one officer directly pointed that gun in my face. If it wasn't for Wall Street and for the people that were there, literally he had to put his skateboard in front of my face. And yet I'm still here, like he's aiming a gun at me. I'm trying to keep this protest civil, because one thing we're going to enforce is that we're going to win them, and it's not going to be by violence. We're not going to match violence with violence, because that's only going to get violence. We asked and we made a calling for the community and to the community to come out and finally just stand up for yourself and finally be like, yes, you're scared. We're scared too. But if we are together and we are united, a lot of things can be achieved. Where if this pandemic showed us anything, we are all equal. It doesn't matter if you were the richest person in the world. It doesn't matter if you had a multi-dollar house. It doesn't matter if you had businesses. It doesn't matter if you were homeless. It doesn't matter if you're a working class or working middle class, low class, single mother like me. It doesn't matter. We're the same. We all had, to a certain point, a very big impact on our life, and we still have it. I, at one point, besides my accident, that's only been 4.5 months, and the deal with my kids, I buried up to 3 people within a span of a month. Everybody got hit, and the answer when we made that calling that we had was unbelievable. I still think about that night and I cried. Like my tears come out, because Echo Park has, everybody actually, and everywhere, I think to a certain point, we got so, and this is my opinion, like focused on surviving when this pandemic hit. We kind of all separated, being, and restricted, being, isolated, or having to, whatever, we separated. We were trying to be COVID safe as much as we can, also keeping in mind that we were aware that a lot of the people that came out had already the vaccine. I myself don't support the vaccine, I'm not for it, but a lot of people are, and we were all there. We saw hundreds of people come out, hundreds of people, and that's why we ended up us 6 staying at the end, because we realized, and keeping in mind that last night when we had this riot, the police literally put a fence up around this park in record number of less than 3 hours, between 12 and 2, 3 in the morning. Okay, so by the time we woke up, keeping in mind that the process and everything that happened, and that was the first encounter that we had really with the police, we were drained. We probably I think me and Wall Street kind of like called it a night until no, actually, you know what? I would sleep for like 10, 15 minutes, and then I would wake up because you could hear the hammering, and they would even do it on purpose, just some point where it was loud enough. Wall Street was, working on his laptop. We had Eamon, like walking around in the park. We had Olga, one of the other, everybody was on the vigil. So we hadn't slept. By the time that the fence was up, we woke up in the morning, we were completely enclosed. There was one gate that kind of like separated us from the street, and it had a lock. We could have easily, yes, of course, got under, but it had a lock. They locked us in, if you want to put that term. They put a lock, and I'm not going to forget that, because they locked us in, and they enclosed the park to where we couldn't jump the fence. We couldn't, and even there, when we were trying to make a statement to the people, to our supporters from the outside, Wall Street and myself and Dave wanted to get on top of this little kind of metal thing, and Lasso was still there telling us we couldn't do it. We couldn't get on top of this little metal thing. They were basically they lowered us to at the end we were only like 4 or 5 when we all came together. No, we were actually, we were like, we tried to get everybody that needed to get out, like older people out, because honestly, all that mobilization was for maybe 10, 12 people, and 5 of them were over the age of 55. So it's just, I'm still really upset at the management of that fund and that money, and the fact that, people were beaten. I saw someone being carried out on the 4 limbs. They were intimidated, they were pushed, they were basically screamed at, they were hit with baton. Isaac, one of our supporters, he got his arm broken by a baton. He was out in all these rallies, so there was a lot of people that got hurt, and we were able to just try to keep it peaceful. We will not incite Echo Park. Rise Up at Echo Park does not stand for any violence. We are trying to defeat that. So we've been able to make a presence through numbers. Numbers are strength, and strength, someone's bound to have attention. Someone's bound to pay attention, and we like I said, every time we call out, now it doesn't matter if you're American, if you're Caucasian, Hispanic, Mexican, Asian, Indian, Honduran, Salvi. We are all coming together now because now we have one common enemy. Echo Park right now, because of everything that's going on with the pandemic, they're trying to clean house, but they're trying to clean house fast. They're doing it violently. They're throwing people's stuff away. They're hurting them, and they're putting them in unsafe positions to either pitch a tent on the side of the road. I'm not gonna go pitch a tent with 6 kids when they're all female in a road where off the freeway. I'm just not gonna do that, or leaving people in dire depression modes where they're going and turning into alcoholism, drug use. Echo Park was a safe haven. Everyone that was there, for the most part, was there because they wanted to get away from that environment. Now they scattered people to the point where they're going to be bound to do a couple of things that they're not supposed to be doing because they're not. Echo Park, you would never go hungry. We had organizations that would go and take food for us, that we had every kind of food you can think of, mental, soul, anything you can think of, a neighbor you had. As a woman, there's nowhere else I didn't feel safe but the park because I had neighbors. So that's been our experience. We decided not to take the Project Roomkey because it wasn't to what we think is constitutionally right. Through Street Watch, they actually have been providing a hotel room, and they've been paying for it for us, so we don't sleep in the street, and we continue having these movements. We are trying to make and establish a connection all over the world now because Echo Park Rise Up is. I envision and I see it as the heart of many great things to come, in a way of people being tired, and if someone like me, like I said, having all these things against me, can still do it and be here with such great people. I think a lot more people, especially Hispanic, Mexican, Spanish speaking people, have the same desire and have the same ambition to get their voice heard. But they're gonna lose their fear, because when your kids go hungry, you don't fear that anymore. When your kids are separated from you, you don't fear that no more. When your home and everything that you own is thrown, you don't fear that anymore. And what they did, I'm gonna quote Amen because he did say that, they thought they were gonna have a bunch of scared kids. What they are is they woke up warriors. They woke up strong women. They woke up strong men, strong boys, strong fathers, strong mothers, grandmothers, great grandmothers. Because now even the grannies are getting in on this because they've been displaced for many generations. This is the chance when we all come together, and we're keeping it up. Actually, one good thing is that we managed to it's in the works, but Griffith Park, there's another park close by, offered us a little piece of land where we could start some encampments for the people that basically didn't end up getting into a room or couldn't or wouldn't. Just me, I couldn't, and it's against my beliefs and my principles, and I couldn't because they're too restricted, and I need to be able to have my freedom. That's kind of why I came here, risking everything. So that's we're trying to get Griffith Park set up. The same thing that we had from Echo Park. Griffith Park would be like a baby from Echo Park, and it's gonna hopefully with everything, and if everything goes well, we will have showers there, we will have a kitchen there, we will have clean encampments there, and we have a community. And the great thing about Griffith Park is going to be an imprint, and it's going to be a little bit of all of you guys and all the amazing work that you guys do in the way you guys for tenant rights, for Latinos, for all those little things. We're gonna hopefully take a little bit of everything and raise this baby and establish this baby correctly, so this could be the patron to other homeless encampments that are going to be a transition to getting people set up right. Nobody wants to be homeless. We didn't choose this life, but if it means this and being locked up, I'm not in jail I'm not in jail. The slavery ended a long time ago. I love my freedom. I love it. As a woman, yes, I look for stability, but if you're going to tell me that stability is either paying $1,600 or $2,000 of rent or feeding my kids, I think I can find a little bit more stability with my kids outside. Thank God I haven't had to have them outside with me. Through an issue but they're being taken care of in a home. But they support me and they're there with me 100%. But it's like, it was either that, and that's another cruel decision that I had to come to: either stay with my kids or have them live in a park or have them live under a freeway. So I chose to do that. I guess ahead of time while I established everything. I figured I'll be there for like 6 months, and then move back into my apartment a block away or whatever, when we were just violently evicted. And I'm almost, I want to say, like mentally tormented, but it's been a different experience for everybody. We're trying to keep a close connection to everybody that was left out of this, whatever they were trying to do. We are asking, and we are going to get more events going, because this is not going to go away. I've had the pleasure of speaking out of a lot of rallies and having a lot of excellent co-leaders that can just enlighten me and show me the way, because this is something new to me. I just know that when I speak and when I make a presence, or when I do what I do, it's because I feel it, and because it comes out of my heart. And honestly, like I'm very upset. I'm very pissed off, because I am homeless, I guess you could say, and been through all this problems I have, never asking for help from anybody, much less the city. That's it's the city has a blind eye, and will turn a blind eye to anyone that actually needs it, unless it benefits their pockets. But now having to go through this again, no, now I'm not only standing up for me, I'm standing up for everybody and anyone that's willing to stand up with me and for me. So, but it's been hard. It's been very hard. But honestly, having the room and having the support that Street Watch, Rise Up LA is giving us, and all these other people are making it so mentally we're sound, mentally we're ready to keep this fight going, and we're not going to give up, and we're going to take Echo Park back. And it's public, and it shouldn't be fenced up.
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. I go by Wall Street, but if anybody wants to know my name, it's actually Caesar, Cesar. I was a park resident for about a year. I've been on the streets a few years now. Just to hit on the question that was asked earlier about the term that's used, usually, I mean, when I ever talk to somebody and I want to know if they don't have a home, or if they don't have like an actual building they live under, I usually ask them, "Are you on the streets?" But I just want to say that because that's what I've been comfortable. That's how I like to communicate. I know, unhoused and homeless has a stigma attached to it. And really, it's used by authorities a lot. I've noticed, because whenever I've had interactions with a police officer, one of the questions they'll ask me, it doesn't matter what I'm wearing, but if it's like late at night and I'm not and I'm outside, it doesn't matter what I'm wearing. They'll ask, are you homeless? And it's really been revealing to me that it's sort of used as, I always tell them no, but I get the feeling that if I were to tell them yes, they might, treat me a little harsher. So it is very true that the words we use to describe our community affects how we're perceived and how we are treated. So if anything, I would want to just emphasize community whenever we refer to ourselves, because we are a community. I can be on the streets or unhoused, and I can have family members, friends, community that actually live in a house. As far as my experience at Echo Park, it was a magical place where you had people that interacted with each other in that park, and these people came from different backgrounds. You could be any color, you could be any in any financial bracket or tax bracket rather, and be able to talk to someone else from any other background. It was a magical place. It was a real community. I can say, and I mean this wholeheartedly, that living in that park has been one of the best experiences in my life as far as belonging to a community. Waking up and knowing that I had brothers around me, brothers and sisters around me that cared about me as a person. That that in the morning, sometimes we would cook with little stoves, but like if we make some food and I saw Robert later, and I would ask him, have you ate today? Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Is there anything I can do? Do you need anything? Do you need a blanket? And we would ask each other that, and just anybody that came to the park that was a new face, like maybe they're going through something and they haven't ate today. So it was a real community, and I'm very proud to have been a part of it. And I'm still a part of it, even though it's not focused in the park in that area anymore. It is still a very real community, and that's how strong our bonds were. That's how strong the bonds have stayed. So we're organizing. We're trying to organize a little better to really be more effective and advocating for everyone's rights. It's not just about whether you had a right to live in a park, in a public park. I believe, and I think the Constitution is very clear that public space, it belongs to the public, and it should be the public, the community that uses that space to determine how it should be used, whether it should be closed right now or not. For $100,000 in renovation is the excuse they use to close down the park, and they're not alone. They spend millions of dollars and payroll and equipment to stop people from exercising their rights. So it's really looking at it as a whole, it's infuriating, to be honest. Like we all pay taxes, whether you're on the streets or not. You pay taxes. You buy something, you pay taxes. So even if you don't have a stable home, you still should have a say in how those taxes are used. I believe, and we can argue whether we can argue whether we can't. No, never mind. Let me go back. We can. I don't think we can discuss whether that night should have happened. That night shouldn't have happened. There's no way that, in America, it should be okay for police officers in riot gear to come in and just displace people with just because they can, just because the councilman decided he decided he was going to do it. So it's about standing together and let it be known that we understand our rights and we're gonna fight for them. And I don't mean physically, I mean with our actions, and with our votes. I think one of the other things that we need to think about is becoming more effective in the ballot box to really let our voices be heard, let our votes be known, and maybe we can back some people that understand that America is America because of the Constitution, because of the Bill of Rights, and we have to stand up for those rights, not just for me, but for my neighbor, and my neighbor that's next to me, and my neighbor that's maybe in another part of LA or even in another part of the country. I'm a very, very strong rights activist, rights supporter. So to me, it's in this case it is gray and black. I mean white and black, where we have rights and they should be respected. It doesn't matter what the councilman wants, what real estate developers want. At the end of the day, our rights are pretty clear. But I also want to add that we're gonna try and have more rallies to really like get the park reopened. I encourage everyone to like look for us online on Facebook or Instagram, Echo Park Rise Up or Street Watch LA. We really want to like get more support, more rallies, and just push the local government. And even I think this went all the way up to the mayor of LA, maybe even the governor, who knows. But really push those officials to listen to the community that they affected and that they're supposed to be accountable to. So we're gonna have more rallies, and I encourage everyone to follow us, and I hope you can join us.